Over 15,000 hours on one Yamaha outboard, and the powerhead was never once rebuilt. That engine sits at number 1 on this anti-death list, and we are counting down to it. 5,000 hours without a rebuild is not a promise anybody can honestly make you. But it is a documented pattern, and only a very short list of outboards actually pulls it off. If you caught the collapse video, you already know how this story usually ends. An outboard that should have lasted 20 years turns into a corroded boat anchor by year 8. So this is the inversion of that story. These are the 5 engines that refuse to die. And this is the exact engineering that keeps them breathing while everything around them rots. Most outboards do not die from wear. They die from corrosion, from neglect, and from a cooling passage nobody ever bothered to flush. These 5 fight all 3, and they win. By the end, you will know the 5 that survive. You will know the one honest caveat that rides along with each of them. And you will know how to buy a high-hour one used without inheriting somebody else's expensive mistake. No fluff, no filler, and a named source behind every number. Number 5 is the one that should not even be on this list, because the company that built it is gone. The Evinrude E-TEC. If you have spent any real time around docks, you have heard someone swear their E-TEC simply refuses to quit. No oil changes to forget, no valves to adjust, and a service interval measured in years instead of months. The factory interval runs to roughly 300 hours or 3 years, which is almost unheard of. Mechanically, there is a real reason for that reputation. It is a direct injected 2-stroke with far fewer moving parts than a 4-stroke. There is no crankcase full of oil down below to break down over time. And the design genuinely tolerates hard, dumb, saltwater use. A brand advisor once told a marine magazine there are Evinrudes running several thousand hours all over the globe. The teardown crowd mostly backs that up. One long-term owner documented a full decade on his E-TEC, and the engine kept firing the whole way through. But this is where the caveat changes everything. BRP shut Evinrude production down in 2020, effective immediately, and pointed customers toward Mercury for future support. So a great running engine is now permanently attached to a dead company. BRP did commit to service parts. It honored the warranties. And that support is commonly described as running through around 2030. But the parts pipeline has been thinning since 2022. The wear items like impellers and seals are still easy to find. The engine computer is the real weak point. That is the module that runs the whole motor. Out of warranty, it can cost you well over $1,000 if it fails. So yeah, it survives. I personally love the engineering on this thing. But you are buying a survivor with no ambulance on call. And on a used motor, that reality matters more than the hour reading. A motor can run forever and still burn you if you don't know the catch. Nobody pays me to point at one. So every tear-down verdict, buy, conditional, or avoid, sits in the Outboard blacklist and buy list. Mine's coffee stained in my console. One bad used motor is a 5-figure lesson. This is $20. Codes on screen, links below. Number 4 is the engine the old salts point to when the 4-stroke crowd starts getting cocky. The Yamaha OX66 2-stroke, the saltwater series. Ask a captain with 40 years offshore which motor he would want bolted on if he had to limp home from 100 miles out. A genuinely surprising number of them named this exact engine. One put it perfectly on the forums. If he had one motor to push him back to the dock, it would be an OX66. The appeal is brutal simplicity. It is a carbureted 2-stroke with very little onboard to fail. And when it is fed clean fuel, it just keeps firing. The heritage crowd in your comments will tell you about OX66s still fishing after decades. They are not making that up. But simplicity comes with strings attached. It drinks fuel and oil in a way that makes a modern 4-stroke owner wince. You have to keep the fuel system and the vapor separator spotless. Because a single lean cylinder ends the party fast and expensive. And here is the quiet part most people miss. These engines usually die from sitting, not from running. Internal corrosion from months of disuse is what kills them, not honest hours. The powerhead parts are also getting genuinely scarce now. That is the same orphan problem from number 5, just wearing a different hat. One more honest line here, because this audience fact checks harder than any other. Not every old Yamaha 2-stroke is blessed. The big block 250 and 300 HPDI had a rougher record than the simple carbureted engines. Those were the early high-pressure direct injection ones. Scored pistons, detonation, and oiling trouble at mid-range. That system runs fuel at very high pressure. So one clogged injector leans a cylinder out and burns it down. Clean fuel is not optional on those. The little 2.6-liter 150 and 200 HPDI earned a solid name. The big block Series 1 did not. So when I say durable two-stroke, I mean this specific one, not the whole family. Number 3 is the engine almost nobody argues about, which is precisely why it earns a spot. The Honda F-series, the 225 and the 250. Hondas are the quiet ones. Nobody is screaming about them online, but nobody is quietly replacing them either, and the reason traces straight back to the car in your driveway. The VTEC system inside these blocks comes from Honda Automotive Dana. It is the same engineering family that runs in their minivans and their trucks, and it is wrapped in a corrosion protection system Honda built specifically to fight salt, which they call 4Front. The receipts back it up. Honda ranked highest in the J.D. Power 4-stroke outboard satisfaction study for several years running. It scored 939 out of 1,000 back in 2007. It won several years in a row and shared the top spot that first year. That is a pattern, not a fluke season. Now for the caveat, and this one is actually fun. You have probably heard the legend that the Coast Guard runs these Hondas to 20,000 hours. Honda did put hundreds of BF-225s into Coast Guard service back in 2002. That part is completely real and documented, but the 5-figure-hour numbers are doc legend, not documented fact. So I am not going to hand them to you as truth. And to be fair to the whole field, Yamaha actually topped the J.D. Power study a couple of years before Honda's winning run began. So nobody wears a permanent crown here. The honest knock on the F-series is simple. They run a little heavier, and they cost a little more upfront. You are paying for that automotive pedigree. Whether it is worth it is your call, but I think the resale value alone answers the question. Number 2 is the value pick that the professionals quietly trust, and the whole case rests on one clever piece of engineering. The Suzuki Big Block 4 strokes, the DF300 and the DF350. Flip over the boats at a tow service dock, the sea tow and towboat cruise, and you will spot a wall of Suzukis. These are people whose entire income depends on the engine starting every single time, in every kind of weather. So it is worth asking what they know that the showroom shopper does not. The headline is the timing chain. Most engines this size run a rubber timing belt that you eventually have to pay to replace. Suzuki runs a chain that lives in an oil bath. It self-adjusts, and in Suzuki's own words, it never needs replacing. That means fewer scheduled failures and fewer big bills waiting for you down the road. They also use an offset drive shaft that lets the motor swing a bigger, more efficient propeller. The DF350 takes that further. It uses a dual louver air intake and a high compression ratio to wring more power from each gallon. The flagship version even spins 2 counter-rotating props for extra grip in the water. The real-world record holds up too. A marine magazine ran a DF300 as a long-term test rig. It earned an A+ for reliability over 600 hours, and they replaced exactly one trim sensor the entire time. One commercial fleet reported running DF300s north of 2,000 hours, with 4 of 5 still in hard service. But let me correct a number you will see floating around, because getting it wrong is how you get screenshotted by a retired mechanic. Suzuki's standard coverage is a 5-year factory warranty, not 6. They did run a limited 7-year promotion on new V6 models late in 2024. The cowling paint has a reputation for peeling, which is cosmetic and annoying, but not mechanical. And honestly, the Yamaha versus Suzuki argument is a real one, not a settled one. Some owners do chase down electrical niggles that others never see. I am not going to crown a winner there. The people who actually run both are split right down the middle. Your call on which trade-off you would rather live with. Before we get to number 1, connect the dots with me for a second, because there is a thread running through every engine so far. Not one of these motors is really threatened by wear. The thing hunting all of them is corrosion, and the thing that lets corrosion win is a skipped maintenance schedule. A marine writer said it cleanly. More engines die from corrosion than from overuse, and nothing feeds corrosion like salt water sitting against 2 dissimilar metals. Here is how that actually kills a motor. Salt and debris clog the narrow cooling passages, or a brittle impeller stops pumping. Water flow drops, and the powerhead overheats within minutes. That heat warps parts and lets go of head gaskets. A tough engine can be dead in one afternoon of ignored temperature. That is the entire ballgame. Hold that thought, because it is exactly what makes number one possible. Number one is the engine behind the 15,000 hours I opened with. The Yamaha F-series 4 strokes, specifically the 4.2-liter V6 and the legendary F-150. There is a company in Charleston, the Charleston Water Taxi, that runs these engines commercially all day, every day. And the owners have documented the hours publicly. Chip Detton and Scott Connolly logged 6,800 hours on their first set of F-150s. The next set reached 8,700 hours. A third set is in service today, and one original F-150 from 2008 is still running with over 15,000 hours on the original powerhead. Connolly said they thought about replacing it, but it was still running strong, and they got curious how long it would actually last. Deaton put the whole thing in terms that stick with you. Running 10,000 hours without a powerhead repair is roughly like driving a car engine 600,000 miles. The engineering underneath is just as serious as the hours suggest. Yamaha builds these with plasma-fused sleeveless cylinder walls. They say those walls are 60% harder than steel. The surface is micro-textured to cut friction, and there are dual water inlets to fight the exact overheating that kills lesser engines. Yamaha markets the 4.2-liter as a 96% reliability engine. That is their figure, not an independent lab's, so I will label it as such. But the sheer size of the fleet backs the spirit of it. This is very likely the most produced big four-stroke on the water. The trade press has openly asked whether the 4.2-liter is simply the best big outboard ever built. Yamaha also claims it runs up to 17% more efficient than rival V6s at cruise. Again, that is Yamaha's own number. But the fuel doc does not argue very hard against it. But even the king had a bad stretch, and pretending otherwise would insult the mechanics watching this. The earliest F-150s before 2005 had a counterbalancer that could whistle at idle, which Yamaha sorted out. The bigger one is corrosion. The F-225 from the model years around 2000 to 2005 had a documented dry exhaust corrosion problem. The exhaust and thermostat housing would rot from the inside out. Yamaha corrected it with a coating change around 2006. So, if someone offers you a cheap early F-225, that is not automatically a bargain. That is a scope the exhaust first situation, and the repair can run a couple $1,000s per engine. The survivors are real, but they are not evenly distributed across every single year. And that honesty is the whole point of this list. So the point of all this was never to scare you off buying used. It is the exact opposite. A high-hour engine from this list can be the smartest money on the water, but only if you know what you are looking at when you inspect it. So let me hand you the checklist that separates a genuine bargain from a floating boat anchor. This is the part you screenshot. Start with a compression test on every single cylinder. You want them all reading within about 10% of each other. But understand exactly what that test does and what it does not. It reads the engine's health right now, today, in the driveway. It does not predict how many hours are left in it. So do not let a seller wave one good compression number around like it is a warranty. Next, pull the lower unit oil and actually look at it. If it comes out milky and gray, water is getting past a seal. And at that point, you simply walk away. Then go hunting for corrosion where it likes to hide. That means around the exhaust, the thermostat housing, and the head bolt areas. If you are looking at that early F-225 we just covered, get the exhaust scoped before any money changes hands, not after. Ask for the service records. Then take the boat on a real sea trial to wide open throttle. A tired engine hides at idle and confesses at full song, so make it sing before you sign anything. A big four-stroke should climb into its rated range without a struggle. If it falls short, something is tired or fouled. A couple of these engines need extra caution on the used market specifically. That Outboard E-TEC is a fine runner. But budget upfront for scarce electronics, and for a shrinking pool of techs who still speak its language. The big block Series 1 each PDI 2-stroke, approach that one with your eyes wide open. And on every last engine we covered, the real game is corrosion control. Those little sacrificial anodes on the motor are designed to rot first, so the expensive aluminum does not. Replace them when they are about half gone. And put the right metal on for your water, because a painted or wrong alloy anode protects absolutely nothing. Flush the salt out for a solid 15 minutes after every single trip. Change the water pump impeller on schedule, roughly every couple of seasons or a few hundred hours, because a $10 impeller is the only thing standing between your engine and an overheat that warps it in minutes. One honest tangent, since the mechanics are here. You may hear that some Yamahas make oil, meaning fuel dilutes the oil over time. That is usually about how the boat is run and propped, or a stuck thermostat. It is not proof the engine is junk. Know the difference before you walk away from a good motor. And mind the fuel itself. Keep ethanol at 10% or below. Run a water separating filter, and add stabilizer if the boat is going to sit. Stale, wet fuel has ended more outboards than hard use ever will. Honestly, on a high-hour offshore rig, I would pay the $500 to $800 for a real engine survey, without blinking. That is cheap insurance against a 5-figure mistake. And yes, I know I just spent 20 minutes telling you these engines last forever. They last forever conditionally. That condition has a name, and the name is maintenance. There is one thing every engine on this list truly shares, and it is not the badge on the cowling. None of them were saved by luck. They were saved by an owner who flushed the salt out, who changed the oil on schedule, and who swapped a cheap impeller long before it ever became a rebuild. The brand buys you a strong starting point, but the maintenance history is the thing that actually buys you 5,000 hours and beyond. So when you go shopping, buy the logbook, not the logo. That one habit is the whole difference between the anti-death list and the collapse list. Next time, we are pulling apart the exact opposite of this video. The outboards that look absolutely bulletproof on the brochure. The ones that quietly grenade themselves anyway. Plus the one shared failure mode that connects almost all of them. If you made it this far, you already think about engines differently than most. Certainly differently than the guy at the ramp who just buys the biggest number on the cowling. YouTube thinks you will like this video, so click it. And if you made it to the end, subscribe.